What's going on, everybody? It's your good friend Trey. My name is Trey Camberling. I'm the Chief Brand Officer at FantasyPoints.com. And this is my first ever YouTube video I'm doing on my own channel. And I'm going to get straight to it. So basically what we're going to be poking into today is the top 25 fantasy football wide receivers, rankings, and tiers. Very simple process today. I'm keeping it as simple as possible. We're going to take the projections from FantasyPoints.com. Chris Weck does an amazing job. We're going to average out the top 48 wide receivers in PPR formats on a per game basis. We're going to find out what the average wide receiver scores week to week in the top 48 and how much of an advantage or disadvantage a guy has based on how much better he is or worse he is than an average wide receiver. So pretty simple stuff, nothing too crazy. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Okay, so like I said, I took the time here to kind of figure out exactly what you need to do, right, to be better than average. And so the number that I came up with, averaging out the per game scores for the top 48 wide receivers, is 14 and a half fantasy points per game. So as you can see, I've got the tiers listed out down below. So your best weekly edge, a huge weekly edge, good weekly edge, slight weekly edge. You're on the plus side of average and you're on the minus side of average. Those are going to be the 6 tiers I'm going to use today. You can see the shadows. Obviously, I got a one-man tier in tier 2. Yeah, some of these names might surprise you, but all I'm going to do here is basically go tier by tier, and I'm going to lay out exactly why I would target one player over the rest or two players over the rest based on ADP and based on how close they are, in the tiers. So yeah, like I said, let's get cracking already here with this first tier. And again, there might be a surprise off rip. So obviously, this probably makes it obvious what that second tier is looking like because there's no Justin Jefferson in tier 1. This tier is going to be Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, and Malik Neighbors. And this is going to be in order. So of fantasy points per week, the amount over, the average. So I can give you the numbers for these guys. Jamar Chase is going to, on average, score 6.7 points more per week than your average wide receiver. Obviously, that's a huge advantage. We've got Puka Nacua at 6.5. Again, another huge advantage. And Malik Neighbors at 6.1. So this is a tier of guys who are going to be scoring consistently way over what your average top 48 wide receivers in PPR formats is going to score. Now, here's why I'm going to say don't pick Jamar Chase in this situation. And it's not because he's bad. I should give the caveat. Anybody in these top 2 tiers and some of the guys in top 3, these are all advantages. So it's nice to have these guys. But I'm going to give you reasons to consider Puka Nacua and Malik Neighbors in this tier over Jamar Chase. And the reason is very simple. Jamar Chase is coming off the board as the second pick, the first or second pick, maybe the third pick in most drafts. Versus these guys, Malik Neighbors and Puka Nacua, you can get them with basically the 9th pick, 8.7 and 9.1, respectively. So you can get them much further down the board. And this is nice for people who are going to end up drafting later if these stick. I will keep remaking these videos as things change. ADP will change, projections will change. But for right now, that's what it's looking like. So if I was drafting today and I could pick where I wanted to draft, I might, if I'm going to go wide receiver off rip, I might prefer to pick in the 6, 7, 8 range just so I could guarantee myself one of Puka Nacua or Malik Neighbors. I got some stats for you here on the two guys. Expected fantasy points per route run, the qualifiers here, minimum 200 routes run last year. You guessed it. 154 qualifying wide receivers. Puka Nacua was first with 0.68 expected fantasy points per route run. Malik Neighbors 0.58 expected fantasy points per route run. So these guys are the cream of the crop in this league. They're the new wave of wide receivers. Jamar Chase isn't going anywhere. Justin Jefferson isn't going anywhere, but this is kind of the new guard. These guys are the real deal, and these guys are deserving of that type of respect. Puka Nacua was also top 10 in that metric in 2023. So like I said, they've kind of been around. If I had to choose between these two guys, my very slight lean is going to be with Puka Nacua just because it's a better situation, better play caller, better quarterback. We love Matt Stafford for fantasy. He dominates. We'll talk a lot about Matt Stafford, during this video. I'm a big Jackson Dart guy, but we just don't know. There's some unknowns in that situation. So Puka and Malik Neighbors are right next to each other in drafts. I'm just gonna slight lean Puka, but I would take, if I had to, at cost. I mean, I'd love to have Jamar Chase. If you get the first pick or the second pick and you're not going with Saquon, yeah, just smack Jamar Chase. It's a great pick. But if you're down the board, this is an area where you might be able to make up some points and get an edge because one of these guys could be the overall number 1 wide receiver this year. That'll bring me to my second tier of guys, which is just one guy, and of course it's Justin Jefferson. So probably not a surprise to anybody there. But I also should say this: the notable thing is that Puka Nacua and Malik Neighbors are, you could call it, firmly ahead. So there's not much to say about this tier other than the fact that Justin Jefferson is going off the board around pick 3. He's the guy right after Jamar Chase being drafted. And again, it's impossible to say don't go after Justin Jefferson. You don't want Justin Jefferson. You do want Justin Jefferson. Again, it's a great, on paper, a great pick where you get him, but Puka Nacua and Malik Neighbors, they could offer more upside considering that you're picking them later, especially if you're in a salary cap or auction format where, the price difference between Justin Jefferson and those two guys is going to be, greater. Everybody's league's different. They're all going to probably be pretty bunched up, but given the ADP discrepancy, I'm kind of just going to avoid Justin Jefferson and maybe go with a running back or somebody else, up in that tier, because you can wait and you can get a Puka Nacua or a Malik Neighbors later. So I know that was a quick tier. Now we're going to get into a big group of guys, and probably one of the more surprising names if you're just casually following things right now. This is a tier of 7 guys in order. So, and I'm just going to read you the ADPs of this list. So CD Lamb, 5.4, Brian Thomas Jr., 11.2, T Higgins, 27.1. So you can see the pick discrepancies, between these players here. Lad McConkey, 22.7, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 7.8. So he's going off the board before even a Puka or Malik Neighbors, basically in the same tier, and I have him 2 tiers below those guys. So something to keep in mind. Drake London, 14.9. Here's the major value of this tier. It's Davante Adams, 39.8, pick 40, damn near, for Davante Adams. So this is who I'm going to choose to highlight in this tier. I got to tip my cap to Graham Barfield. He wrote the Fantasy Fallout piece that really broke down everything you need to know about Davante Adams. And I'm almost going to just regurgitate his article and read it to you. You need to give Graham a follow over on Twitter. He does a lot of great work at Fantasy Points. He's the man, and this article was a must read. So over the last 4 seasons, in 59 full games with Stafford under center, that includes the playoffs, the Rams have scored on 41.5% of their possessions. That's the 8th best, only a few tenths away from the Ravens, 42% in that span. This is a fantastic offense, and I told you we'd come back to Matt Stafford. He's the guy you want. It's the dream quarterback. Matt Stafford has supported 2 top 24 wide receivers by PPR fantasy points per game in 3 out of his last 4 seasons in Los Angeles. 2 top 24 wide receivers, okay? So we have this floor baked in. His price is at his floor. The only season that it didn't happen, Matt Stafford's season was cut short by a back injury. So the sleeper ADP would suggest that when Davante Adams is coming off the board as the 20th wide receiver being picked, and this won't stick. This will change. People will get hip to this, and that probably won't be the case when we get to the season. But you're getting him at his healthy floor. If he plays, you're basically guaranteed. You're getting him at what is the worst possible, outcome, barring injury and missing games. So, like I said, the ADP probably will keep rising, but right now, Davante Adams is just a screaming value in this tier. We love the Rams. We love the Rams offense. The Rams offense is going to feed families. That's what I keep saying. Matthew Stafford's the man. I'm not a Rams fan, a Falcons fan, but love the guy. So let's bounce on over to tier 4, another group of 3 guys. And this is the tier where you start talking about guys that I don't want to do this because I don't want people to. This is where people get upset, but these guys are, like I said, Davante Adams pick 40-ish, Lad McConkey pick 23-ish, T Higgins pick 28-ish, Nico Collins pick 10. AJ Brown pick 16. These are not typically the guys that you're going to want to get on camera and say, fade Nico Collins, fade AJ Brown. I'm not saying that. But there are huge question marks. And again, this Eagles offense is not your historical powerhouse offense. I know a lot of people think that Eagles pass catchers are due to positively regress, if that's how the touts say it. I'm just a content guy, so I don't totally know. But they're a run-heavy offense with a lot of rushing touchdowns, and there's just not the volume is not necessarily there for, whether or not A.J. Brown is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Certainly he is. Nico Collins as well. But you've got a guy in this tier in Rashee Rice who is, might get suspended. He might be injured to start the season, but he's being picked around the 44th pick, 45th pick, and these other guys are going with the 10th pick and the 16th pick. So this is kind of a no-brainer. And what I like to say about a guy like this is that your fantasy championships are not won in the first week of the season, and they're not won early in the season. Of course, there's a run out where Rice is hurt to start the year and misses a couple games and then gets suspended and misses games later. But even if he's suspended early and he comes back healthy, this is a guy that you're going to want in your lineup down the stretch, especially at that cost, because you'll be getting so many other better players before pick 43, 44, 45. Again, if that's the case, if that's where we're at when the season starts. But he was unstoppable last year when he was healthy. Before the injury, he was third in fantasy points per game. That's league-winning stuff. And the discrepancy in ADP, like I said, is because of the opportunity that he's going to miss games. We know that he's injured. We know he's facing suspension. That's already baked in. We already know that. But what you're telling me is I can add potential Nico Collins or A.J. Brown level production to my team with the 44th pick, 45th, 46th pick. It's a no-brainer. I mean, you have to take that risk. Right now, this game, there's the information is as good as it's ever been, and everybody is taking these slight edges. This is one massive edge. If this guy is falling to this range by the time we start drafting, you just basically have to take Rashee Rice in this range, because the potential of what that could do for your fantasy football team far outweighs nearly anything else on the board. The Davante Adams is of course a great pick, but like I said, these edges with Puka and Malik Neighbors are in the first round still. This is a huge edge. Maybe one edge bigger than this in that 6th tier. We'll get to that. For now, I'm going to go ahead and pop over to this 5th tier. Another huge group of guys. We got 7 here as well. Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, JSN, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Godwin. Of course, Chris Godwin is going to be a name because, he's projected to miss a few games and had an amazing season last year. That's going to be a guy that I'm going to want to target in this tier. He's on the lower end of this tier, but he's going off the board pick 65-ish. DK Metcalf would be the next name that I look at, 51.8. The third best player in this tier. Tyreek 26.8, Mike Evans 35.9, DJ Moore 41.8, JSN 23.4. I like JSN as a player. I think that he has the opportunity to actually outperform that ADP. But when you could take a guy 40 picks later, 30 picks later that is going to perform similarly, those are the type of moves that you make to win your league. I'm going back to some Graham Barfield information he also wrote on the fantasy fallout of the DK Metcalf trade. And this is, I'm not a massive DK Metcalf fan, and I'm not a big believer in what the Steelers are going to be able to do this year. But if he is a league winner, and if he's a guy that, is somebody you needed to win, this is going to be why. In his first 7 games of last season, he was on a career best pace. He was wide receiver 6 in targets per game, and his YPRR, yards per route run, was within his usual range, 2.16. He's scoring at the wide receiver 15 clip. 15.4 fantasy points per game. I don't love him. I don't have much faith in him, but this is a guy that is you don't see this type of talent, especially in this tier. Tyreek is an aging, talent like this. Mike Evans is an aging talent like this. This is a top level talent in his prime sitting in this tier. So for me, yeah, coming off the board after guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., which I'll give you a spoiler alert. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to be in that 6th tier. He's coming off the board after guys like Terry McLaurin. He's coming off the board after guys like Cortland Sutton. This is a different talent level. And I like Terry McLaurin. I like Cortland Sutton. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has a lot of talent. DK Metcalf is on another level of talent than those 3 guys. And he's coming off the board after those guys. So that's a shot I would really like to take, in that range. And let's get to the last tier, and maybe my favorite value on the board, and I know it's a fantasy points favorite. We got a tier of 6 guys here. going to be Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Xavier Worthy, Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley, and Tet McMillan. The first rookie to make the list here. Not a guy that I'm going to be targeting. Again, this tier is called on the minus side of average. So it means, again, the best player in this tier is like 0.15 points below average. That would be Cortland Sutton. So this is basically average. These aren't terrible guys, but Calvin Ridley, listen to this number, an ADP of 83.1. 83.1. And this guy right now is profiling game by game as a top 24 wide receiver. This is a low end, high end wide receiver, low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3. There's nothing else going on in Tennessee. It's a lot of question marks. He's the 38th wide receiver coming off the board, and we haven't projected, like I said, top 24. That's a massive discrepancy. And that's, again, it's, there's a ceiling there too. There's a ceiling associated with this guy. If that's his floor, if his floor is around 26 or 28 to 22, wide receiver 22 to 28, that's amazing. I mean, that's a huge win if you can get him, as the 38th wide receiver coming off the board. So this is a name I know I can guarantee you this will not stick. This is a name that's going to rise. I do not believe he'll be the 38th wide receiver off the board by the time we get to August and September. But yeah, the Titans, they upgraded massively in theory with Cam Ward. Can it be worse? I guess it's possible, but you'd have to assume that that's an upgrade. DeAndre Hopkins gone last year midseason, NWI gone. They added Tyler Lockett, they have Van Jefferson, Chimere DK, and Alec Aomanor. So it's rookies, right? And Lockett is dust. And maybe this is the one take that I think is like a throwaway take that I'll just eat my words on later. But I think he's dust. I think he's not good. Van Jefferson has never been good. DK, I don't know much about. I know he was taken before Alec Aomanor, who I'm a big Alec guy. I think he can emerge, and I actually think he landed pretty well, even though he fell pretty far in the draft. Even if the Titans are a middling offense, somebody has to matter here. Somebody has to score fantasy points here. And it's just hard for me to imagine that it's not Calvin Ridley. I mean, if Cam and here's here's your bull case. Here's what you need to tell yourself. What if Cam Ward comes out of the gates and he's firing on all cylinders? And what if he's like amazing? Like what if he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback? And what if that offense like matters, like significantly matters? Then what does that mean for Calvin Ridley? Because right now we've got him projected. We don't have them projected as lighting the world on fire, and he's the 24th wide receiver. So if they do anything better than below average, I would be pretty happy with myself if I was taking some of these shots on Calvin Ridley. So I think he's kind of a no-brainer. League-winning pick. That's going to be it for the tiers today. Just drop in the comments. Obviously, a surprise Marvin Harrison didn't make the top 25. People have something to say about that, I'm sure. The Nico Collins, A.J. Brown. I wouldn't call it hate. I think other people may call it hate or disrespect. I'm just looking at the values. I'm just looking at the numbers and trying to cycle through these ADPs and seeing where we can, find replacements later so we can bolster other positions and build just a dominant fantasy team this season. So thank you all for watching. Again, my first video, good friend Trey. I do the NFL Best Bets podcast over at Fantasy Points with Joe Dolan and Tom Brawley, two amazing guys and great friends. I am your good friend Trey. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next episode.